Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 532 for the 30th of December 2018. Richard Saunders here with you from the San Francisco Bay Area. It's the last Skeptic Zone for 2018. Next year, 2019, will mean the Skeptic Zone will be broadcast or netcast, webcast, in 12 different years. It's just ridiculous. Coming up on this week's show, Heidi Robertson with an update on last week's stories revolving around the 7:30 report, the ABC TV news program in Australia, about the no jab, no play laws. Well, this update revolves around the reaction to that report, and also a second update by Jane Hansen as well about the success of this sort of legislation, no jab, no pay, and no jab, no play. Looks like the anti-vaxxers are on the back foot. Following that, it's a bit of good old-fashioned skepticism with a report about astrology. Remember that? Yeah, I remember astrology. It's the good old days of skepticism. And this comes to us from the pages of the Skeptic magazine, the journal from Australian skeptics. It's a fascinating report. I love poring through the back issues of the Skeptic magazine, and this is simply one of the thousands upon thousands of reports and interviews available to you at skeptics.com.au. An interesting look at astrology from an astronomer. Then we have a report from the Diet Skeptic Mandy-Lee Noble. This week, Mandy will be looking at the keto or ketogenic diet, especially for those people who are looking to make New Year's resolutions about another diet. And they're thinking about the keto diet. I don't know too much about this diet, so I'm looking forward to this myself. The Diet Skeptic will tell you all about the research and the results of the ketogenic diet. Then to round off the show, for the last bit of the Skeptic Zone for 2018, bit of internet nonsense with the Maynard and I reading out some of the crazy, wacky things Anti-Vaxxers say online. And this was found at the BuzzFeed website. Now, before we get stuck into the show, I've been told there's a skeptic camp coming up in Monterey, California on the 5th of January, pretty soon. I'm in the general area. It's not out of the question. I might be able to make it there. No promises. My timing here is a little bit uncertain at the moment. Anyway, for more information about Skeptic Camp coming up in Monterey on the 5th of January, check out this week's episode for the show notes. But now it's time for me to run upstairs, defrost a pizza, and while I'm doing that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello everyone, Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. From the Sunday Telegraph on Sunday, December the 23rd, 2018, by Jane Hansen. No jab, no whinge as experts hit ABC. Pro-vax policy applauded as 730's claims ridiculed. Furious medical experts and parents have smashed the ABC's 730 program for claiming no jab, no play is excluding some children from early childhood education. Instead of leaving anti-vax parents secluded from society, the no jab, no play policy is directly responsible for saving lives and boosting falling immunisation rates, experts said, adding vaccination is safe for children and parents have no reason to fear it. Meanwhile, parents such as Catherine and Greg Hughes, the parents of Riley Hughes, who died of whooping cough at just 4 weeks of age in 2015, said they knew how it felt for their son to be excluded. Quote, "We do know how that feels, because you know who won't be able to attend kindy next year? Riley," they said in a statement. On Tuesday's ABC 7:30, mother Katerina Gorka claimed her youngest was a victim of the policy because, quote,
because I have a set opinion on vaccinations and that's not going to change.
End quote. Quote,
"It makes me feel like we're a bit secluded from society."
End quote. Miss Gorka told the 7:30 program. Mullumbimby mother Jessica Golias was furious. Only 50% of 5-year-olds are vaccinated in her town. Quote, "I think my kids are at a disadvantage in my community. Your child might miss out on early education, but my child could catch whooping cough and die," end quote, she said. Quote, "I think no jab, no play is the best the government can do to encourage parents not to follow the anti-vax trend," end quote. The grieving parents of Dana McCaffrey, who died from whooping cough in 2009, also said no jab, no play was the catalyst for change. Tony McCaffrey maintains her newborn picked up whooping cough when she dropped her older children at a daycare centre that had an outbreak. Quote, "Nothing has worked in the past to increase vaccination rates, whereas no jab, no play is steadily increasing rates," end quote, Mrs McCaffrey said. 7:30's story suggested childcare centres in northern New South Wales were facing closure due to unvaccinated children being ineligible, but a check of childcare vacancies in northern New South Wales showed 4 centres in Mullumbimby were full, and the 5th, the Mullumbimby Community Preschool, had vacancies only on a Thursday and Friday. Nearby Byron Bay had no vacancies at its 5 preschools or daycare centres. Roxanne Elliott from the Care for Kids website, which maps childcare vacancies Australia-wide, said the policy has had no negative effects anywhere else. Quote, "Wait lists are still very strong. Some services are experiencing vacancies but only due to oversupply. But there is no correlation to this and no jab, no play," end quote, she said. Dr Andrew McDonald, a Campbelltown paediatrician and former New South Wales Shadow Health Minister, said while he was initially hesitant about no jab, no play, he had seen it work, quote, "like magic" in Western Sydney. Australian Medical Association President Dr Tony Bartoni said no jab, no play had worked where other measures had failed. Quote, "We would have preferred education and incentives rather than the big stick, but all other measures had not worked. And when misinformed parents are putting other children at risk, measures need to be taken," end quote, he said. And the following story comes to us today, Sunday the 30th of December 2018, and it's another story from Jane Hansen from the Daily Telegraph. Quote, 500 children a day catch up on vaccinations thanks to no jab law. More than 500 children a day have caught up with their vaccinations since July the 1st, thanks to new no jab, no pay changes. Government data obtained exclusively by the Sunday Telegraph shows 80,000 children have caught up in the 5 months between July the 1st and November the 30th. The surge in numbers is a result of a change that reduces a parent's fortnightly family tax benefit Part A instalments by about $28 per fortnight for each child that does not meet the immunisation requirements. The government gave the families of 245,000 children a 63-day grace period to catch up on all shots, and a third of those, about 80,000 children, are now on schedule. Quote, This means, on average, more than 500 children a day who did not meet immunisation requirements when this new policy started on 1st of July 2018 have taken action, end quote, a department spokesman said. About 110,000 did not respond within the grace period, and a further 40,000 are still within a grace period. The data shows that since the government introduced its initial no jab, no pay policy on January the 1st, 2016, almost 250,000 children and their families have taken action to ensure they meet immunisation requirements. Australia now has the highest vaccination rate on record, with 94.62% of children aged 5 years fully immunised, up 2.03 percentage points since before the changes. Tony McCaffrey, who lost her baby Dana to whooping cough in 2009 when vaccination rates were sliding to dangerously low levels, has supported the no jab, no pay policies because, quote, nothing else was working, end quote. Quote, the data shows the policies are working and saving lives. More children are protected, and this makes childcare and preschool safer and healthier for everyone, end quote, she said. Catherine and Greg Hughes, who lost their baby son Riley to whooping cough in 2015, agreed. Quote, the numbers are phenomenal. We are thrilled that so many more children are getting vaccinated thanks to the no jab, no pay policy. This policy is making a real difference to children's lives, ensuring they are protected against diseases that could potentially kill them, end quote, Mrs. Hughes said. Quote, ideally, education would be enough to convince all parents that vaccination is the right thing, but with the global rise of anti-vaccination and anti-science ideology, we think strong policy like no jab, no pay is needed, end quote. New South Wales has also achieved its highest vaccination rates, with the figures for children fully vaccinated at 5 years of age increasing by over 6% from 2010 to 2018. Isabel Bornelis was born 10 weeks premature in August 2017 due to her mother suffering preeclampsia. Isabel weighed a tiny 900 grams, and as a result, her parents, Katie and Chris, have always made sure she is up to date with her vaccines. Quote, I've always been a believer and made sure she is up to date because she was so little and we wanted to keep her protected. She'll have her 18-month shots in February, end quote, she said. Increasing activity of anti-vax campaigners online has prompted the New South Wales Healthcare Complaints Commission to issue a new warning about anti-vaccination campaigners, quote, and the potential risks that such persons and associations pose to the public health and safety. Health consumers should be particularly wary of persons claiming to be experts or to have conducted research into the safety and efficacy of vaccines or immunisation programs in circumstances where they do not hold relevant medical qualifications and are not a registered health practitioner, end quote, the December 18 warning reads. So that's great news. A lot more kids have now been caught up on their vaccinations, and as a result, the community is safer. And for now, that's all for me, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
You know, I gotta say, Bigfoot's BS, but the chupacabra is totally the result of top-secret government genetic experiments on a remote island.
Taking medical advice from Gwyneth Paltrow, like steaming your lady parts and putting jade eggs all up in there, is a great way to improve your health.
Police from around the world regularly use psychics to solve crimes. They just don't talk about it.
Spontaneous human combustion is for sure a real thing. I've read all about it on the internet, and I worry someday it's going to happen to me.
We all have friends and family who believe these things and much more. Well, If you're a rational thinker who is tired of arguing on social media and never getting anywhere, we have a solution for you.
Join the Guerrilla Skepticism and Wikipedia team, and we will teach you how to add reliable scientific and skeptical information to the world's #1 source of information, Wikipedia.
We write new articles and improve existing ones. We remove pseudoscience, paranormal, and alt-med claims, substituting the actual facts. And we operate in many languages.
We've already reached tens of millions of people searching for information, but as you can imagine, we can never do enough.
So please, join us. All you need is a PC, a Facebook account, and the desire to help educate the planet. In fact, you'll be educating the world while you sleep.
Contact us at gsowteam@gmail.com. Guerrilla Skepticism. The time is now.
Music by PurplePlanet.com.
Now, some of you may know the wonders, the magic, the untold pleasure of jet lag, which I suffer from when I travel across the Pacific. So the other night, unable to sleep, I tuned into Sydney radio and came across the late night session on Radio 2GB of an astrologer, in this case Milton Black. Now, Milton Black has been a prominent astrologer in Australia for decades, I think you'd have to say. I once crossed swords with Milton Black on national TV, maybe 10 years ago, and I'll add a link in this week's show notes so you can see the video for yourself. But it inspired me to dive into the pages of the Skeptic magazine and do a search on astrology, and I came up with a very interesting article, printed way back in September 1984. And this is from Volume 4, Number 3 of The Skeptic. Again, I will link to this issue in the show notes because all the back issues of The Skeptic, bar the last year, going back to 1981, are available for you online to peruse and enjoy for free. This item appears on page 23 and it's by Philip Ianna. An Astronomer's View on Astrology. One of the impressive things about astrology today is the extent to which it pervades our culture. More people know their star sign than know their blood type, and you can find zodiac motifs on almost anything. For example, the ANZ Bank in Australia has advertised a Zodiac Savers Plan. To some, this is just amusing, but to many, astrology is the space-age science, the guide to their personal lives and business. Several companies have been reported to use horoscopes to find the optimum time to introduce a new product into the marketplace, or to judge what job a particular person might be best suited. For a kidnapping trial in Cincinnati several years ago, the defense attorneys consulted astrologers for guidance with the selection of a jury. In a Florida rape case, there was an attempt to have the charges dismissed on the grounds unfavorable celestial influences were at the root of the crime. How you react to these stories no doubt depends to some degree on whether or not you see astrology as valid or invalid or somewhere in between. Scientists have been inclined to ignore astrology or dismiss it as nonsense. But really, we should ask, might astrology in fact work? Have astrologers found fundamental laws governing our behavior? What is the mechanism, if any, producing the effects claimed? Astrology is a system whereby the patterns of planets in the sky can be interpreted to reveal personality and predict events. We perhaps all know the kinds of things. If you are born with the sun in Capricorn, you are said to be neat, methodical, and have an extreme capacity for hard work. Planetary patterns are also alleged to yield information about the life of a business, a building, or a whole nation. Recently, John Millich of New York City suggested a relationship between transits by the moon of Sirius, the dog star, and the enactment there of the dog litter law, the so-called pooper scooper statute. The typical natal horoscope maps for a specific time of birth and location the positions of the planets with respect to the signs of the zodiac and the 12 houses. The horoscope analysis is carried out by combining or synthesizing of the many various indicators of the chart. The astrologer might look at the distribution of the planets around the chart, the occurrence of the planets in the cardinal, mutable or fixed signs, the ascendant sign, the sun sign, the moon sign, other planets in the signs, planets in the astrological houses, the angular relationships or aspects of the planets, hypothetical planets, and a few other things. If all the chart factors that have been produced were to be included, a few thousand million, it would take about 300 kilometers of computer printout to list them. The interpretation of all this information is yet another matter. Astrologers often do not agree with one another about the factors in the chart. There are no Maxwell's equations of astrology. All of this bears little resemblance to astronomy. Astronomy is a science. It has most precise descriptions, and the evidence of its success in seeking the secrets of the universe is there for all to see. Through astronomy and physics and related technologies, we have sampled and scrutinized distant planets and their moons. We know our sun is a garden variety star like billions of others making up the clouds of the Milky Way. All of the stars contain the same chemical elements and operate with the same physics. Astronomers have examined great clouds of hydrogen where the stars are born, the debris left over when stars explode near the end of their lifetimes, and have gone on to find there is galaxy after distant galaxy, like our own Milky Way. These marvelous truths are not self-evident, but come only after hundreds of years of very hard work. It has required thousands of individuals trying new ideas and curious about nature, making mistakes, finding new information, adopting new viewpoints, in order to understand something about how the universe behaves. On the other hand, the astrologers appear to have uncritically adopted any combination or permutation of factors they could think of in a horoscope without any appeal to evidence. They have not appreciated how we, as fallible humans, are inaccurate, biased observers of the world. It is not adequate to trust intuition or our impressions of things. We do need experiment and evidence. A number of astrologers have wanted at least a scientific origin for astrology. Mark Edmund Jones has argued that astrology arose empirically when man began to observe correspondence between the events in his life and seasons and celestial phenomena. The historical record shows astrology beginning about 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. Then astrology consisted of very simple omens about the appearance of the moon and the planets in the sky. Quote, "If the sky is bright when the new moon appears, the year will be good," end quote. Such sayings were only a minor part of a very superstitious culture, where any event in nature of almost any sort was read as a portent of some future event. People looked for meaning in the migration of animals, storms, patterns of animal entrails, patterns in flour or oil thrown into an urn of water, like reading the tea leaves. Was this empirical? Consider the typical birth omen. Quote, "If a woman gives birth to an elephant, the land will be laid to waste," end quote. Surely this and similar omens, including those astrological, are not based on observable fact. As far as can be determined, there is no recorded historical evidence to suggest any astrological tenets were originally empirical. A problem for the scientist has been trying to understand what plausible physical mechanism could possibly produce the astrological effects. Astrologers have occasionally dropped vague allusions to gravity or electromagnetic radiation of some undiscovered kind as sources. Gravity seems unlikely. The pull of the doctor in the delivery room is stronger than most planets, and the astrologers certainly do not speak of, quote, inverse squares, end quote, effects. Radiation doesn't seem likely either, unless you want to add the delivery room lights in the chart indicators, for they are far stronger than planetary radiation. Nor does particle radiation appear to correlate with astrological effects. The astrologers seem to be stuck with a, quote, missing link, end quote. The crucial question, however, is whether or not natal horoscopes fit the lives of people. First, two interesting examples for astrologers at work. To quote an anecdote from a recent astrology text, one prominent astrologer, just having impressed a client with an accurate description of what was going on in her life, discovered she had been using the wrong chart, one for a different client. Astrologers frequently study the lives of famous people. Winston Churchill is a good example of someone about whom a great deal astrological has been written, especially with regard to the timing of events in his life. Unfortunately, for a long while, Churchill's birth time was unknown. A.G.S. Norris, who did much of his work, used a chart rigorously recertified by several methods, i.e. the birth time is inferred from astrological correspondence with documented events. Of the predicted ascendant, Norris wrote, quote, "If it were proved wrong, which is almost inconceivable, the blow to directional astrology would be a serious one," end quote. Subsequently, the birth time of Churchill was discovered and published. The rectified time was about 2.5 hours too late. Moreover, at least half a dozen rectifications had been published. None of them identical. All of them wrong. Astrological personality descriptions are usually not very specific. Experiments by psychologists show people are inclined to believe any horoscope if they are told it was especially prepared for them. To illustrate this, in April 1968, Michel Guaquilin placed an ad in a magazine offering a free horoscope and analysis to anyone who would write in. He sent the identical computer horoscope to each respondent with a questionnaire soliciting comments on the quality of the analysis. Of 150 replies, 94 found the fake horoscope accurately described their character, their personal problems, and the cycles of events in their life. 90 found the accuracy confirmed by family and friends. The wrong horoscope sent to each person was the birth date of a Dr. Priot, a notorious criminal who had murdered several dozen people and dissolved their bodies in lime. It is one of the most common associations in traditional astrology that occupation, personality traits, and physical characteristics vary according to sun signs. It is very easy to check up on this claim. For example, according to Margaret Hone, an Aries person is expected to have several characteristics including red hair. Roger Culver gathered a sample of 300 red-haired individuals to see if most of them might have been born under Aries. They weren't. He found their birth signs to be about equally divided between all 12 zodiacal signs. A study of G.A. Tyson of 10,313 university graduates over a 10-year period examined the relationship between date of birth and career. No relationship between birth date and career was found. Other studies comparing standardized personality inventories with sun sign estimates show no significant correlations, nor do supposedly incompatible signs show up in marriage or divorce statistics. A few weeks ago at the University of Virginia, we tested an astrologer, John McCall, who claimed an 80% success rate at distinguishing the correct horoscopes for an individual from 3 false ones on the basis of observed physical characteristics. This was a double-blind test, and no one knew the correct answers until after the experiment had been performed. For 28 subjects, Mr. McCall was right only 7 times, just what is to be expected by chance. Finally, one of the most comprehensive studies to date is an elaborate investigation of New York's suicides by astrologer Nora Press, and several colleagues. Suicides were chosen because they could give a well-defined event time, and it is such an extreme personal action, so some tendency towards suicide should appear in their birth chart. Approximately 100,000 different factors were examined for the sample of 311 suicides. The study failed to identify any factor in the birth chart significantly related to suicide. There is overwhelming evidence showing astrology cannot do what is claimed for it. Moreover, it seems to me that astrology, although offering psychological solace to those who believe, has never contributed in any useful way to the advancement of knowledge. And again, that comes to us from the Skeptic magazine from September 1984. And I note that this was reprinted with permission from the Laboratory News. And again, this is just one of hundreds of thousands of articles and reports available at your fingertips at skeptics.com.au.
Ben Radford here. If I can have a minute of your time, I'd like to shamelessly plug my new book. It's called Investigating Ghosts, the Scientific Search for Spirits. It examines ghost hunting and ghost investigations from a historical, cultural, and evidence-based perspective, from the Victorian era to modern TV ghost hunters. It is, in a way, a follow-up to my 2010 book, Scientific Paranormal Investigation, How to Solve Unexplained Mysteries. That book was more general, covering everything from psychics to crop circles to monsters and ghosts. But I realized that ghosts are a special category. Not only are ghosts the most popular paranormal pursuit, but ghost hunting also has its own set of assumptions and challenges. The book will be available soon for under $20 and is currently available as an ebook. For more information on the book and me, check out benjaminradford.com. Please check it out. Thanks.
That looks good enough to eat. Or does it? Here's the Diet Skeptic, Mandy-Lee Noble.
Hello, Skeptic Zone listeners. Mandy-Lee Noble here. Dietitian and skeptic reporting from Brisbane. Welcome, Skeptic Zone listeners, to this week's almost New Year's Eve Diet Skeptic Report. And as you may have guessed, I have been inspired by all those social media ads I have seen encouraging me to kick off 2019 with a diet. And the one diet that seems to be the most recommended for this year's life change is the ketogenic or keto diet. So I've had a little dive into the evidence relating to keto diets to see if what I read in the media fits the facts. I'm going to unpack 5 claims I have heard recently or read recently made about keto diets. But before I begin, I would like to make this little caveat. The evidence shows that the diet may be suitable for some people with certain medical conditions, but should not be used for the general public or as a long-term diet. So when I examine the ketogenic diet in this report, it will be as it is formulated in the research for weight loss. That is normally a period of around 3 months on a strict ketogenic protocol, followed by a maintenance diet, which is most often a low-carb diet or the Mediterranean diet. I will also mention that many of the interventions that was in the research also had a physical activity component, and that this physical activity component would have contributed to the positive results that were attributed to the ketogenic diet. So, claim number 1. The ketogenic diet is perfect for weight loss. To evaluate this claim, we must first consider what we already know about weight loss. The evidence we have to date is that weight regain is common after weight loss that is achieved with diet and exercise. Weight loss is maximum at 6 to 12 months, and then regardless of the amount of weight lost, most weight is regained within a 2-year period, and by 5 years, the majority of people are at their pre-intervention body weight. That is evidence from our National Health and Medical Research Council. What it tells us is that for the ketogenic diet to be the perfect diet, it needs to demonstrate that weight loss can be maintained for 2 years and ideally can demonstrate weight loss to 5 years. To that end, I made a fairly thorough search of all randomized controlled trials of ketogenic diets, and I found over 60. Of these, only 6 studies had 2 years follow-up. The results for the participants under research conditions showed maximum weight loss at 6 months, followed by weight regain in all trials, and no studies went beyond 2 years. Conclusion? To date, the evidence does not demonstrate that the ketogenic diet is more successful than any other diet for long-term weight loss. Okay, let's move on to claim number 2. A greater proportion of fat will be lost from the abdominal cavity. Some studies did demonstrate a decrease in waist circumference. However, similar to changes in weight, the maximum decrease was at 6 months, followed by an increase towards pre-intervention waist circumference at 2 years. Conclusion? To date, the evidence does not demonstrate that the ketogenic diet is more successful than any other diet for long-term reduction in waist circumference. Claim number 3. It can achieve a dramatic improvement in lipid profiles. The studies regarding lipid profiles were conflicting. Some showed no significant difference from baseline. Others showed that triglycerides like weight and waist circumference seemed to be most improved at 6 months and then seemed to be returning to pre-intervention levels at 2 years. Another study found greater improvements in lipid profile from participants on the low-carb ketogenic diet compared to a Mediterranean or low-fat diet. Conclusion, the evidence seems conflicting and more research is needed to confirm results. Also, physical activity has a known benefit to lipid profiles and may have contributed to the positive results. Claim number 4. The ketogenic diet will reduce your appetite. Some research has shown that ghrelin, the appetite-stimulating hormone, is suppressed while participants were in ketosis. However, once participants switched to the maintenance diet, ghrelin levels rose significantly. This would match the results observed in studies comparing ketogenic diets to other diets where initial weight loss was greater on the ketogenic diet, but that was followed by greater weight regain. Even the most frenetic of ketogenic diet proponents, medical doctor Andres Enfeld, concedes most people end up dipping in and out of ketosis, semi-regularly anyway. And it's a hard thing to always be in deep ketosis. His solution to clients who follow the ketogenic diet but do not lose weight is to consider adding intermittent fasting. To another client, he provided these reassuring words. An alternative can be a need for starvation that is rarely sustainable or empowering. Conclusion, maybe the ketogenic diet does reduce appetite while you are in ketosis, but this may not help maintain weight loss as weight regain mainly occurs in the maintenance period. Remaining on ketosis is hard and not recommended for the general public. And we all seem to agree that starvation is not a sustainable solution. And finally, number 5, the ketogenic diet improves biomarkers for diabetes. In the studies that reported the participants' average HbA1c, an indication of how much sugar you've had in your blood over the past few months, the results were not significantly different between the groups on a low-carb ketogenic diet or a low-fat diet. Both followed the same trajectory as weight and waist circumference, being at the lowest level at 6 months, followed by an increase towards pre-intervention levels at 2 years. Conclusion: to date, the evidence does not demonstrate that the ketogenic diet is more successful than any other diet for long-term reduction in biomarkers for diabetes. There are some other concerns about the ketogenic diet, and those include that a keto diet may be high in unhealthy saturated fats, low in fibre, which can affect heart health, some chronic disease, can increase bowel problems and risk of bowel cancer, and that a keto diet may be missing important vitamins such as thiamine, folate, vitamin A, E, B6, calcium, magnesium, iron and potassium. There have also been some negative effects of the keto diet reported, and these include fatigue, constipation, headache, bad breath, feeling sick, dizziness, dehydration, bowel problems, high cholesterol, kidney problems, osteoporosis due to lack of calcium, and rapid weight regain when normal diet resumes. Of the one study that I reviewed where the participants' symptoms were recorded, the group on the low-carb ketogenic diet reported significantly higher levels of bad breath, constipation and dry mouth. So skeptics, as normal, you will find general evidence-based dietary recommendations for ensuring you receive all the nutrients required for health at www.eatforhealth.gov.au if you're in Australia, or on your country's Department of Health website. Anyone starting a ketogenic diet should do so under clinical supervision, along with the help of an accredited practicing dietitian. Until next year, skeptics, I wish you love, laughter and peaceful eating. Bye for now.
Hi, this is Dr. Pamela Gay from Astronomy Cast. Each week, Fraser Kane and I take our listeners on a fact-based journey through the cosmos. With our weekly podcast, we explain not just what we know, but how we know what we know about this universe that we share. Check us out at astronomycast.com and look for us in iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you download podcasts. See you online.
Now, here's a story that was, stories of such. An article that was published at BuzzFeed, BuzzFeed.com. Links in this week's show notes. And I can't vouch for this one, folks. I don't know how many of these are true. I suspect all of them are, but I don't know. I guess in a way it doesn't matter too much. They're quite funny. And this is along the lines of dumbest things anti-vaxxers actually said in 2018. Compiled by David Stapira. And with a little help from Maynard, we read, on the plague, somebody posted, my point was the plague disappeared without a vaccine.
Yeah, because people died, you uneducated potato.
On the flu shot.
The flu is killing up to 4,000 Americans a week.
This is why I refuse to take the flu shot. On health. If vaccines were healthy, you could put it on a spoon and eat it. Try it. you'll die.
If broccoli was healthy, you could put it in a syringe and inject it into your bloodstream. Try it. You'll die.
On measles. When you realize measles protects against cancer, you understand why the industry wants to prevent it. On research. Friends, I am desperate here. I am a newly non-vaccinator and I want to write about vaccination dangers for my final thesis in college. However, I have to use scholarly journals, etc. as my sources. When I do a search deep into GSU's library, every article seems to be pro-vax and nothing supporting my argument. Does anyone have some scholarly docs that I can use to prove my point effectively? Thank you all. Love heart, love heart, love heart.
The fact that you cannot find any journals to back up your viewpoint may suggest you need to reassess your viewpoint.
On chickenpox. Can anybody answer me why kids don't get chickenpox no more? Or was we experiments as kids? I need answers.
Vaccinations!
On giving birth.
Texas. 14-year-old virgin falls pregnant after flu shot.
Hell no. Why myself or my kids will never get the flu shot. One of many reasons. On the government.
Let's not forget about anti-vaxxers.
There have been multiple scientific studies on the dangers of vaccinations.
Show me one, please.
Government controls the internet now, so I can't find what I'm looking for.
Thanks for trying.
On polio. I don't believe that one single vaccine is bad. I believe that 128 vaccines by age 12 is bad.
Based on
we vaccine more than any other country in the world and are slowly declining on our life expectancy in the United States.
Where are you getting 128? Everything I've read is 70 doses of 16 vaccines over 18 years. You know what's worse than 70 doses? Polio.
Polio hasn't been a factor in 60 years at least.
Why is that?
On outbreaks. With the headline, CDC monitoring measles outbreak in 21 states, including Michigan. Please don't vaccinate. I don't want my kids getting the measles.
That's not how vaccines work.
On science. The meme says, did you know that vaccine ingredients are considered poisonous on their own, but when mixed and injected, they become magically safe? Hashtag because science with a $sign.
Sodium, poisonous. Chlorine, poisonous. Sodium chloride, not poisonous. Actual science.
On the Bible. With the headline, Anti-Vaxxer Warrior Mom. If vaccines are so great, why aren't they mentioned in the Bible? On playing God. With 3 unvaccinated adult children and 3 unvaccinated granddaughters, all extremely healthy, I will continue to question everything I put into my body as they will. There is plenty of evidence to show us that, quote, playing God, end quote, with the human body and with our planet is dangerous. The human body is self-developing, self-maintaining, and self-healing. It needs no help, just no interference.
And yet you are wearing glasses in your profile pic.
On getting sick. I wish I would have never had been given the shot. I've had it ever since I was a baby. I did an experiment on myself and didn't get the flu shot for 3 years in a row, got the flu super bad every single year, and ended up in hospital. So sadly, I must get it even though I don't fully trust it. Modern medicine for ya. LOL.
Hang on, I've never heard this before. Are you saying because you got the flu shot as a kid, you now have to get it each year or else you get the flu?
Yeah, I never get the flu when I get the shot, but if I don't get the shot, I get the flu really badly. On mercury. Mercury in seafood equals not okay, especially because you are pregnant. Mercury injected into babies' bodies equals okay not. It does not work that way. Things idiots say.
Isn't there a distinct difference in the mercury chemical makeup in vaccines and in nature? Fish, etc.?
I don't know about makeup since I literally have never even owned makeup in my life, but CDC swears up and down it is safe in vaccines because it is a, quote, preservative, end quote. Well, how is it okay there but not okay as a preservative in food? On evidence, don't over-medicate your dog. Vets push this stuff like doctors push vaccinations.
That's a stretch. Zero scientific evidence human vaccines do harm. I sleep well at night knowing I won't die from rubella or polio, but that's just me. Call me crazy.
Do some research.
Please do share. I did a 4-year medical degree, but maybe you know more than me.
That says it all. And those gems come to us from BuzzFeed. I'll link to it in this week's show notes. And true or not, I suspect they were true. True or not, it is typical of some of the things anti-vaxxers actually say. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone for 2018. I don't want to predict what's going to happen in 2019. The only thing I will predict is there will probably be another Skeptic Zone episode coming up, and if all goes well, there'll be another roughly 52 Skeptic Zone episodes coming up for 2019. And the only reason there are so many Skeptic Zones coming up and have been in the past, well, partly because of my wonderful reporters, Mandy-Lee Noble and Maynard and Heidi Robertson, who you heard in this week's episode, but largely it's due to people like you who contribute via Patreon or PayPal at skepticzone.tv. Without funds, the show simply could not continue. So a big end-of-year thank you to all those people who do, in fact, contribute to the Skeptic Zone. But for this year, this is Richard Saunders signing off from the Bay Area, San Francisco. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.
Ensuring they are protected against diseases that could... Oh my God, that's... Dozer playing with his chicken. Hang on. I have to take your chicken away. Oh. Sorry. I'll give it back to you. No, just... Calm yourself. All right, you got to stay out there. Oh, God. No, you got to go out. Go on, come out. Come on. All right. Sorry, I'll let you back in a minute. Where was I?